Okay, in this video we're going over some recent news with Conor McGregor. He declined a fight at Alcatraz, which is a crazy venue to hold a fight night in general. But this also comes with the implication, and Conor McGregor is on record saying a lot of things about this, that he is probably going to retire, and he is actually probably done because he needs to go be president of Ireland. But we'll get to that. We'll get to this, the movie that they're going to make, which is another thing with Turkey Al Sheikh, which I want to talk about. I want to talk about their relationship and if it's going to be good or bad for the UFC going in the long run. We have two cancellations that were very big fights, and I want to talk about what they're going to do next. And then we have Costa versus Coppola that got announced. Just a little mismatch video today. So Conor McGregor declined a fight at Alcatraz because he wants to be the president of Ireland, and he thinks that he's done enough in the UFC all around, so he thinks he's done. This is a sad thing for me because I wanted some more super fights with McGregor, but his cancellation seems to be his final fight or his final inkling of a fight against Michael Chandler. And Michael Chandler, speaking of him, he is going to be sad for the rest of his life because he's never going to get this matchup because Conor's now a politician. He's worried about his country, which I understand. So he's gonna do that instead, and he feels he's done enough, and he feels like it's not worth it to fight in a venue like this, which Turkey Al Sheikh is involved in. This Alcatraz venue fight, which they are gonna do. I'm pretty sure they are gonna do this venue, which is interesting to me. I don't know how they're gonna do that crowd wise. It's just interesting. But Conor McGregor is gonna retire. He's not gonna fight again. It's sad for me. I know everybody loves to hate on Conor McGregor, but he was my childhood favorite fighter. He was the sickest fighter I've ever watched in my past. All of my huge moments when I was a kid, when I was into the UFC so much, were through Conor McGregor. So him going off this weird trail and going, if he becomes president of Ireland, it'd be really funny, but he's not gonna because I don't think he can. But it just pains me to see how this kind of ended. The highest highs and the lowest lows and a lot of coke are going to be the story of his life. So, that sucks. But it's okay. He's been out for a long time. It's not like we all knew this was going to happen. So, it's okay. Next. This one. So, they're making a movie with Zack Snyder, which if I had to choose a director to do a UFC movie, I don't know if it would be Zack Snyder. I'm pretty sure the 90% of the UFC movie called Brawler is going to be a in slow motion cut because he's known for doing that. He's known for doing crazy, stupid slow motion shit. And it's a fighting. It's going to be all fighting. So it's just going to be all slow motion. At least that's my guess. I don't know. I just wouldn't have chose Zack Snyder. I like some of his work, but it's just a bad idea. But Turkey Al Sheikh is the main reason I wanted to bring up this topic. He's the one doing the Alcatraz event if that does go forward. He's the one making this movie possible. He's the one making this boxing promotion that Dana White wants to do possible. Dana White is kind of leaving himself. I know they're partners, and Turkey is involved because Turkey is involving Dana White in a lot of his project as well because he trusts Dana White's knowledge and skill set. But when are we gonna? It's interesting dynamic because are we gonna? Is it gonna get to the point where Dana White is kind of on a leash for Turkey, where Dana is gonna be pretty much funded by Turkey and have to do what he says, or is it gonna stay a 50-50 partnership? That is a very intriguing question. Because there's a lot of interesting things that they can do with Turkey's money going forward. The Alcatraz event, they could do more big events like the Sphere. Those are now on the table with him. The $50 million that John Jones wants is pretty much on the table with Turkey if he decides to do that. There's a lot on the table with Turkey Al Sheikh. That is the positive. We get to have these crazy things potentially with him involved. But is it gonna become to the point where we lose the genuinity of the UFC and Dana White starts becoming kind of a shill? That is the question that I am bringing up, and that's the food for thought I want you to think about. where will this go? I want to know your opinion. I think we're going to get some sick shit in the beginning. There's a possibility this might turn into a boxing scenario for the UFC because we know how much big money and snarky fighters costs boxing. And UFC fighters, if they know they can just bitch and get a huge payday, it's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a thing going up. Ilya Tapuria is being, I'm a big Ilya Tapuria guy, but he's saying all this shit like I'm only fighting for a belt. I don't really give a fuck about anyone else. John Jones is being a huge baby and saying that he'll only fight for 50 mil against Tom Aspinall. If these other fighters get a whiff of success and then they decide, they need me. I need Dana White to I need him to be stern and put his foot down and not allow this to become boxing. That's my fear with this partnership and with these huge money thingies and these huge productions. We're going to start getting a little fancy, and then I fear we're going to get a little bit inactive in terms of star-studded cards and awesome fights. I think it'll be cool in the beginning, but if they're not careful, this could turn into pro boxing very quick. And I hate pro boxing for many reasons, but the main reason is the corruption, the cheating, the scandals. Every single time anything cool happens in boxing or any big event happens, everybody's only talking about the controversy and not the fight in general. Fights take a fucking 10 years to get made. I don't want the UFC to become that because it's my only hope for MMA in general. Maybe there's a dark horse in the GFL, which is starting up actually, and they have a lot of events lined up. But we will see. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up. Next, this. So there's two cancellations, Jeff Neal and Carlos Prates. Because of Jeff Neal is injured, I believe. He's out. So, and they don't want a replacement for Carlos Prates as far as I know. So, they're probably going to rebook this fight for the next pay-per-view. I don't know how serious the injury is, but since they didn't give Carlos Prates another opponent, I'm assuming it's not super serious and they'll get him on the next pay-per-view. I'm okay with that. 314 was very stacked, so them being off of it to help another pay-per-view, I'm fine with. But Carlos Prates and Gene Silva being on the same card was very hype, so I'm sad about that. The more important one is Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. That is off again. This is the second time this fight has been canceled because of Jamal Hill, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jamal Hill was the one who did it the first time. I don't like this for Jamal Hill very much. I feel like his career is going to go down the toilet, to be honest. I'm pretty sure why, I don't know what they're going to, if they rebook the fight, it makes some sense to rebook the fight for a later date. But now we have some interesting shit we can do with Khalil Roundtree, I feel. But it is kind of late. So maybe not. I don't know. If Carlos Prates if Carlos Olberg maybe wants to step up, this could be an option. If Yuri is just willing to fucking throw down, that could be an option. Or rebooking the fight could be an option. But as far as I'm concerned for Jamal Hill, I don't like this at all for him. As far as I'm concerned in this fight, when it was still going, when it was still on, I was saying it was a 50-50 matchup. I said Khalil Roundtree might have the edge, but I still respect Jamal Hill's skill at this point, even though his losses have been pretty bad recently. With this now, the second injury after a chinning against Yuri and a chinning against Pereira, and his Achilles got torn, and he has a bunch of minor injuries all the time, I don't like this at all for Jamal Hill's career, and I fear a definite landslide falling down the fucking hill for Jamal Hill. Double hill. For Jamal Hill, sadly, as this goes forward. Jamal Hill, I fear his career is going to go down the deep end. And I think Khalil Roundtree, if he stays active, will do the opposite. I think he's going to go up. And I think Khalil can beat a guy like Carlos Olberg. And I don't hate Khalil's chances against Yuri Prochazka. It would be very hard to beat him. But Khalil Roundtree has power. And he's a short little guy, a little stocky guy that can probably get in the distance and blitz forward like he did against Pereira. And he had success against Pereira. I don't hate that for Yuri Prochazka. But this just makes me sad for Jamal because I don't hate Jamal Hill, but he's probably done. I think he's going to start failing. He will all. I'm sure he'll be a top 7, 6 guy forever until he retires, really. But he's never getting the sniff of that belt again. That is my prediction. Finally, Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. So Roman is getting his chance after some boring grappling decisions. I'm pretty sure. That's kind of lame to me. I wanted Costa. I guess it makes sense. This fight makes a lot of sense, to be honest, because Costa has only been losing, to be honest, to everybody. He hasn't really proven himself against recent comp at all. And Roman Kopylov is an up-and-coming guy, and it's a fun striking battle. So this makes sense from the UFC. It's not what I would have initially picked, but now looking at it now that I've taken some time to gander, I think this is a good matchup, and I think it'll probably be a lot of fun. And they're closer in the rankings than I thought. I didn't realize Costa was number 12. This is going to be a pretty good fight. And Roman Kopylov introducing him to the top of the rankings, even though he's had hiccups and losses, is still a little bit interesting. But I think Costa, as far as the prediction goes, it's hard for me to pick Costa ever now. But I think Roman Kopylov is kind of the limit of fighter where Costa can definitely beat a Roman Kopylov, especially if he fights like he used to instead of how he has been recently. Paulo Costa has reverted from a pretty crazy brawler that pushes forward like crazy to not doing that as much and being more technical, and I don't think it suits him as much as being a crazy brawler. And Roman Kopylov, he likes to strike, so we'll see what happens. I don't know. This is a very tricky one to predict because Costa hasn't looked himself. And Roman Kopylov is very dynamic on the feet. And he's implemented a lot of grappling. So we'll see. As of right now, I'm actually going to pick Roman Kopylov to win. I think he's more dynamic striking-wise. I think Costa is kind of on his way out. I think he's gotten in his head that he can't really be a brawler anymore. And I think he's going to get out-technicaled on the feet. Kind of like, he got shut down by Strickland bad. I just don't think he's going to be the same. I don't think he's going to be the guy who fought Romero or the guy. I just don't think so. So I think I'm going to go Roman Kopylov by decision probably because you can't really finish Paulo Costa. So I think this will be a very fun fight though. And I might change my mind as time progresses. But that is about it on this whole subject matter. I will see you soon. Like and subscribe.